I will never forget the sound of gift wrapping paper tearing, the only sound anyone can hear. No music, no laughter, just that quiet crinkle as my daughter Lily carefully unwrapped her gift. Her tiny fingers tugged at the corners like it was the most precious thing in the world. And for a second, she smiled that soft and hopeful smile kids get when they think magic might still be real. But when she opened the box, her whole face shifted. Confusion first, then a flicker of something deeper, hurt, maybe. Her little shoulders stiffened, and she glanced at me. The box contained a cheap set of mass-produced art supplies. I saw it before she even said a word. Just a plastic set that couldn't have cost more than $5. Nothing like the gleaming new iPads her cousins had just unwrapped. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it a mistake? Did someone switch the gifts? But before I could open my mouth, I heard him, my dad, Monty. He let out this sharp laugh, short and cold like a bark in winter. He sat back in his armchair, folded his arms and said, "Children need to learn about appropriate expectations. We got Lily something suitable for her situation." My heart dropped. Lily froze. Her hands were still hovering over the box like maybe there was something more, like maybe something better was hiding under the flaps or tucked in the corner. But there was nothing else. I felt the heat rush up my chest. My hands trembled where they rested on my lap. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat like splinters. Then Victoria, my sister, snorted and held up her phone, snapping another picture of her children with their expensive gifts. "Elise, don't look so shocked. We got her something within your means. It's not our fault you can't provide better. Perfect for posting with #family Christmas traditions, right?" My jaw clenched. I could feel the muscles in my face tightening, the burn behind my eyes threatening to spill over. I forced myself to look at Lily. She wasn't crying, not yet, but her lips were pressed tight and her chin was trembling the way it does right before it breaks. Her big, soft eyes filled with tears, and she was too proud to let them fall. She looked at me again, not asking for help, just checking if she should pretend it didn't hurt. And in that moment, I hated myself. I hated that I'd brought her here, that I'd hoped, maybe stupidly, for a normal Christmas. That I thought my dad could be different, that I wanted them to see the beautiful, kind, creative girl Lily was and love her like I did. But they didn't see her. To them, she was just an extension of me, a reminder of my failed marriage, my career struggles, the disappointment I'd become according to their standards. The room was dead silent except for the soft hum of the heater and the pinging notifications from Victoria's phone as she uploaded more perfect family photos. Each new sound felt louder than the last, like it was counting down to a moment I wasn't ready for. Lily looked down at the cheap art set again. Her fingers brushed the edge, then slowly she folded the flaps shut. Her hands were shaking now. And then she whispered something. "I got you a gift too, Grandpa." Everyone turned. Dad looked up, that smug grin still on his face. "Oh, really?" He laughed and said, "I wonder what that is." But Lily didn't back down. She reached into the pocket of her coat and pulled out a small USB drive, prepared with such care it made my chest ache. She took a step forward and held it out to him with both hands. And right then, I knew this moment wasn't over. Something was coming, something none of us were ready for. I hadn't been home for Christmas in over 2 years. Not since my divorce, not since the shame, not since everything I'd been trying to hold together finally cracked wide open. Lily, she wanted to see them. She asked me 3 weeks before Christmas, "Mom, do I have grandparents?" That was her way of asking why we were always alone during the holidays, why we didn't have matching pajamas or giant trees or cousins to run around with. So I said yes. And when she asked if we could visit them this year, I said yes, again, against my better judgment. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought time would have softened them. Maybe I believed, just for a moment, that when they saw Lily, when they really looked at her, they'd feel something, warmth, regret, love, anything. Instead, the minute we pulled into the driveway of their Boston mansion, I felt that old weight settle back onto my shoulders. That invisible tension that coils around your ribs like barbed wire when you're trying to smile for people who don't really want you there. Their house hadn't changed, still cold, still perfect, still spotless in that way that feels less like home and more like a museum of wealth. My mom Eleanor greeted us with that plastic politeness she'd mastered over the years, a quick hug for me, soft pat on the head for Lily. Her eyes lingered too long on the scuff marks on Lily's boots. I saw it, how she took her in like an item on a shelf, deciding whether or not she belonged in their pristine world. Victoria barely looked up from her phone when we walked in. She offered Lily a half-hearted, "Hey," then went right back to scrolling through her social media feed. I could already feel my stomach tightening with dread. And then there was Monty, my dad. He was in his usual chair by the fireplace, whiskey glass in one hand, newspaper in the other. Didn't even stand up, just gave a nod and muttered, "Didn't think you'd actually show up." That was his way of saying hello. Lily gave him a shy wave, her mittened fingers poking through the wool. "Hi, Grandpa," she said softly, like she was testing the word out loud for the first time. He grunted from behind his paper. I don't know why I still hoped for more. Maybe because Lily was trying so hard. She'd made digital drawings for everyone, carefully created on my tablet, saved to a USB drive with their names labeled on each file. She even asked me how to spell, for Aunt Victoria, because she wanted it to be perfect. She worked on them every night for a week, her face glowing in the light of the screen. I wanted this to be special for her. I wanted her to feel like she had a family, even if they were far from perfect. I scraped together what I could from freelance design work just to buy her one nice outfit, a little gift to open, and enough gas to get us there. That morning, as I tied Lily's scarf, she looked up at me and said, "Do you think they'll like my digital art?" And I said, "Sweetheart, they're going to love them." But in the pit of my stomach, I already knew the truth. I was bringing her into a house where kindness was currency they never gave out for free, where smiles were measured and love had conditions attached to family status. Still, I tried. I told myself this was about Lily, not me. That I could keep my chin up, play nice, pretend for one day that everything was okay. But as I watched her heart quietly break in front of them over something as cruel as a deliberately inadequate gift, I realized they hadn't changed. And I wasn't sure they ever would. Lily handed out her USB drive like it was a treasure. She moved through the room so gently, like she was afraid to disturb anything. The small flash drive had each person's name labeled on a different file, created with her careful digital artwork. She showed one to my mom first, then Victoria, then even my brother Garrett, who'd barely looked up from his laptop since we walked in. When she got to my dad, she paused for just a second, long enough that I held my breath, but she smiled, pointed to his file and said, "Merry Christmas, Grandpa." He didn't look up from his newspaper, just gave a dismissive wave as if she was interrupting something important, not offering a piece of herself. She moved back to the couch and sat beside me. Her face was still lit up, hopeful. She had no idea how cold the room had gotten. Then Dad gestured toward a large box beneath the tree. It was wrapped in silver paper, topped with a red bow, almost too perfectly done. He nodded toward Lily with a grunt. Her eyes widened with excitement. "For me?" she asked, her voice brightening. He shrugged. "It says your name, right?" She looked at me first, like she needed permission. I nodded, even though something in my gut twisted with dread. She scooted to the floor and pulled the box into her lap. Her small hands ran over the paper like it was sacred. I watched her savor every moment, the untapping of each edge, the careful unfolding. She wanted to remember this rare gift from her grandfather. Then the lid came off. She peered inside, and I saw it happen, the exact second she realized what it was. Her face didn't crumple, not right away. Instead, her eyebrows pulled together in confusion at the cheap dollar store art supplies. She reached in, as if something more substantial might be hiding at the bottom. She looked up at me, uncertain. There was nothing else in the box. Just a flimsy plastic set that couldn't have cost more than $5. Dad laughed loudly. "What? You were expecting something like your cousins got?" He scoffed, leaning back. "World doesn't reward failure, kid. Your mom should have taught you that." Lily blinked. Her hands froze around the cheap plastic. I couldn't move, paralyzed by shock and rage. Then Victoria, always waiting for a moment to cut deeper, glanced up from posting her children's expensive gifts on Instagram. Well, she is just like her mom, always expecting people to hand her things. You deserve what you get, right? I felt it in my chest like a punch. Victoria, stop it. I said. She raised a perfectly manicured brow, smirking. What? It's true. Not everyone deserves the latest iPad. Lily was silent now. The cheap art supplies still rested in her lap, the box flaps wide open, exposing the glaring difference between her gift and her cousin's treasures. The room had turned on her, and I saw her realize it. I hated them for making her feel small, for making her question her worth. I reached for her, but she didn't move. She just kept staring at the box like it might somehow transform if she waited long enough. Inside, I was screaming, say something. Stand up. Defend her. But I didn't want to make a scene, not in front of her. That's the thing about being in families like this, you learn to freeze when things get cruel. Lily was only 7. She didn't know how to put on a mask yet. She didn't know how to swallow that kind of pain while smiling for the camera. Then she looked up at Dad. Her voice was quiet, barely more than a whisper, but it cut through the room like a bell. It's okay, she said. I made something special for you too, Grandpa. And just like that, the whole room shifted. No one spoke or laughed. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out another USB drive, and I realized something was about to happen that none of them would forget. I stared at her completely still as Lily reached into her coat pocket. The room had gone silent, so quiet I could hear the faint notification sound from Victoria's phone with every new upload. My own breath felt too loud in my chest. She pulled out a small USB drive, different from the one she'd shown earlier. It looked tiny in her hands, vulnerable even, like something that could be tossed aside without a second thought. But she held it like it mattered, like it contained something precious. I whispered, Lily, maybe not now. She turned to me, and there was something in her eyes I didn't recognize, not sadness, not hurt, but calm. She gave a little nod, the kind that said, I have to do this. Then she turned to her grandfather. I made something special for you, she said. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. He just glanced at the USB with that same dismissive expression he always wore when someone dared ask him to feel something. Oh, really? He muttered, folding his paper. You made me some computer doodles or something. There was sarcasm in his voice, the kind he always used when he wanted to make you feel small without raising it. But Lily didn't flinch. She walked across the room and held out the USB drive to him with both hands. That's when I noticed her fingers were shaking. I knew that feeling, the way your hands betray you when your heart's thumping in your chest, when you're trying to be brave even though every part of you wants to run. He took it from her like it meant nothing, holding it up with one hand while setting his whiskey glass down with the other. You'll need to use your tablet, she explained softly. Reluctantly, he reached for the tablet my mom had bought him last Father's Day, still in its original case. He plugged in the USB, tapped the screen a few times awkwardly. Then he looked down and stopped. I couldn't see what was displayed from where I sat, but I saw his face. It didn't twist in confusion or irritation like I expected. Instead, his eyebrows drew together. He blinked once, then again. His jaw slackened just slightly, like he'd forgotten where he was. The entire room seemed to lean in. What is it? Victoria asked, impatient, her phone poised for another potential post. He didn't answer, just stared at the screen. Lily stood there, hands clasped in front of her now, watching him quietly like she wasn't sure what came next either. I got up and crossed the room slowly, almost afraid to break the moment. I stepped beside her and gently placed my hand on her back. She didn't look at me. She just kept her eyes on her grandfather. And he looked older than I'd ever seen him, not angry, not smug, just still. On the screen was an animated storybook titled, Memories of Home, featuring drawings of Dad in his uniform beside Mom at her piano, with soft music playing. He closed the tablet carefully, deliberately, almost reverently, and placed it on the side table next to his chair. Then he stood up. No one knew what to say. No one moved. He walked out of the room without a word. The sound of his footsteps down the hallway was the only thing we could hear. He didn't slam the door, didn't shout, just left. I looked down at Lily. Her voice was quiet when she asked, Did I do something wrong? I knelt beside her, wrapped my arms around her and whispered, "No, sweetheart. You did something brave." Victoria muttered something under her breath, but this time I didn't care, because I knew whatever Lily had created in that digital storybook, it got through to him in a way none of us ever could. She didn't fight back in anger, cry, or post offensive comments online. She gave him a gift, one that reminded him he was still human beneath the military discipline, even if he'd forgotten. And I think, just maybe, that scared him more than anything else. I didn't see my dad for the rest of the day. He didn't return to the living room, didn't come back for dinner, not even when my mom called out that dessert was ready in that overly sweet tone she used when pretending everything was fine. Lily didn't mention him again that evening. She played quietly with the cheap art supplies from her disappointing gift and helped me fold the wrapping paper scraps like it was any other night. But I could tell her mind was somewhere else. Every now and then, her eyes would wander toward the hallway where Dad had disappeared, checking her tablet occasionally as if wondering if he was viewing her creation again. But nothing happened, not that day. We left early the next morning. I told them we had plans back in the city, but the truth was I couldn't bear to spend another second pretending. Victoria didn't even get up to say, too busy crafting her perfect family Christmas morning posts. My mom handed me a foil-covered plate of leftover ham and told me to drive safe. No mention of what happened last night. No one asked how Lily was doing, and that somehow hurt even more. The ride home was quiet. Lily stared out the window, watching snow blur past the trees. I reached over and held her hand at one point. She squeezed me back. I didn't bring up the digital storybook. I didn't want to make her explain something that was clearly so personal. I didn't want to pull apart whatever magic had lived in that moment. But I thought about it the whole drive home. What had she created that made my dad, the man who once called me too emotional for tearing up at my own wedding, turn pale and leave the room without a word? I found out 4 days later. It came in an email notification on my phone while Lily was at school. There was no greeting, just a subject line that read, "For Lily." I opened it slowly, not sure what to expect. Inside was a download link to a digital music box app, beautifully designed with virtual wooden carvings and roses around the interface. It played Moonlight Sonata when I tapped the screen, Mom's favorite piece that she used to play on their piano. And there was a note attached to the email. It was just one line, typed in a formal font, to the observant girl who remembers what matters. Thank you for the reminder. No signature, but we didn't need one. When Lily came home, I showed her the download. She clutched my phone to her chest like it was made of gold. She didn't say anything at first. She just held it and smiled. I sat down next to her on the couch and finally asked, "Lily, what did you create for Grandpa in that storybook?" She looked up at me and said, "It was an animation of him and Grandma dancing while she played piano. I found old photos on your computer from their anniversary. I wrote that I hoped to see him smile again someday because I read in your old diary how music used to make him happy." My throat tightened. I didn't speak. I couldn't, because that was it, that was the part of him I'd forgotten even existed. The man who once smiled, once danced, before military discipline hardened him, before Mom's illness made him distant. Lily saw through all of that and gave him a piece of something he thought he'd lost forever, not pity, not guilt, but connection. She didn't try to fix him. She just reminded him that he used to be someone worth remembering. And in return, he gave her something too. Maybe not love, maybe not forgiveness, but a beginning. A digital connection that bridged the gap between generations. And sometimes, in families like ours, that's enough. The digital music box app now lives on Lily's tablet. Every night before bed, she opens it, not always to listen. Sometimes she just likes to look at the virtual carvings, to watch the animated lid open and close, to know it's there. The way a child might clutch a comfort object they've outgrown but still can't let go of. She hasn't said much about that day since, but every now and then, she'll mention Grandma Eleanor, someone she never really knew but speaks about like she's still here. Like she's someone Lily knows through the digital photos she found and the stories I've shared. And maybe she does. Dad never called me. He didn't send a follow-up email, "No, I'm sorry, no explanations." That's not who he is, maybe that's not who he'll ever be. But a week after the digital music box arrived, I got an email notification. It was not addressed to Lily, but to me. It was short, 3 lines written in his formal military style. I misjudged you. She has your creativity but her own kindness. Check your professional website tomorrow. No signature, but I knew. The next day, a commission request appeared in my freelance design inbox, my first corporate client, referred by Montgomery Woodward, retired. And for reasons I can't quite explain, I cried while reading it. Not because it made everything better, not because it fixed the years of silence or the way he used to look through my art school portfolio like it was evidence of wasted potential. But because for once, it felt like he saw me. And more than that, he saw Lily. He saw what I've always known, that she's special, that she has this way of peeling back the filters people put on their lives and showing them their authentic selves. Even when they're hiding behind expensive gifts and social media facades. She's not loud, and she doesn't demand followers or likes. But she changes things. She changed him, not completely, but enough. Enough to make a man who'd shut the door on the digital world open it just a crack. Enough to make someone who believed only in military discipline and family status recognize the value in a child's digital creativity. People ask me sometimes why I went back that Christmas, why I exposed her to their judgment, why I didn't protect her better. And the truth is, I thought I was. I thought blocking them on social media would be enough, that hiding their perfect family photos would protect her heart. But Lily didn't need that kind of protection. She needed reality. She needed to meet them, to see the world for what it is, beautiful and cruel, filtered and raw, all tangled together. And somehow, instead of getting lost in it, she decided to add her own truth. She did not need revenge or even recognition. She just wanted to create something meaningful. And that creation, as simple as it was, did something I couldn't do in 30 years. It finally opened the connection. Not perfect, not permanent, but enough for an email to get through. Enough for music to play in the quiet. Enough for a retired military man to remember a part of himself that existed before his perfect family image fractured. Lily reminded me of something that day too, that sometimes genuine creativity is the most radical act, that a digital story can carry more emotion than expensive gifts. And that when we choose authenticity, even when it's hard, we create something no one can take away, a moment, a connection, a beginning.